If you manage software licenses, your publishers are always changing on you, whether that's publishers recently having a buyout, a credit downgrade, a switch to subscription pricing, or an audit push. Any of those can cost you real money, and usually you find out too late because it shows up in the news and not necessarily email from the vendor. And so tracking that by hand really doesn't scale. So we built an AI agent in ServiceNow to do just that. This agent crawls the web on a daily basis to identify any relevant news for the publishers you care about and if that news might impact your organization. So if I would kind of give you some insight into how it works as far as some of the instructions, and so the first one, it looks up our watch list. That's just the publishers that we license from with a note on why each one matters. And so this is actually referencing this table here as far as watch list that you would define. Maybe since we're using the SAM application for this example, you'd point it back to the software model table for the applications that you're entitled for and that you manage. And then for the second step is for every publisher on the list, it searches the web for recent news, and it's looking for specific things: ownership changes, financial distress, audit activity, license changes, security issues. So it's not just any headline, it's really the stuff that actually moves the risk. And then there's the sourcing strategy. So we told it to rank where most of its information comes from and to always take the most credible source. And so like a credit downgrade or an SEC filing is treated as more official, and a random, say, forum post gets capped low and flagged as unverified. So if I scroll down even more, we can see some of the tools that it has access to. And the four can actually run autonomously, meaning the agent really decides when to use each one. So it can look up the watch list, it can search the web, check what's already saved, and also has the ability to create a record. And really the web search is probably doing most of the heavy lifting. It's using ServiceNow's AI web search, which is really under the hood powered by Google. It's a live search on the open web, not necessarily some sort of fixed feed or some data load that we load ahead of time. And also, too, I want to point out, it also uses a feature called grounding. And the answer isn't the AI remembering something from its training, which can be stale or wrong, but it's actually pulled from the live web pages that exist right now. And every piece comes back with the actual citation and article it came from. So the idea is this would be running on a daily or weekly basis. Usually like in the mornings, you'd probably do it. But for this use case, we'll actually go ahead and run it ad hoc, but it will just kick off the same way that it would, say, a daily or weekly job would perform. So we'll go ahead and start the test just to initiate this AI agent. So now that the SAM risk agent has been completed, right, it's gone through all the different steps, let's actually see what the output it provided us. And so this is where the records are actually being created that would signify a certain risk to your organization. And so we have something for Broadcom, which we own, Avanti we own, Quest Software we own, and the different severity and signal types, and then even to the actual article that it's drawing the information from. So we can see here Avanti's been downgraded, and we can actually click into the individual record on the publisher risk signal, and it will give us more information on what the rationale is, right? It's private equity owned, been downgraded by the S&P with a negative outlook, and reflecting a high debt and ongoing cash burn. So there's a high likelihood of they're going to be more aggressive with audits as they look to improve liquidity and get some cash on hand. So not only do we give you the signals itself here, but I took it a step further and created Flow and Flow Designer to kind of do two different things. One, create a task record so we can track it within ServiceNow as far as bringing the right team in, and also tracking it, making sure it actually gets addressed and signed to. And then even to notifying the different team members by sending out an email to maybe a team or individual in this case, or just send it over to my Gmail account. And one thing worth calling out is usually where these tools fall apart is this agent is just set up to run every morning, right? We could set the schedule however frequently we want. And I think the real risk for something like this is for a lot of news coming in that's irrelevant or the same. And so with it running every morning, right, the news doesn't change that fast. And so most days it's looking at the same stories we already saw. And so we want to make sure it doesn't refile them. And what it does is it remembers, it checks what's already there before it writes anything. So it only creates a new record when something actually changes. So a new downgrade, a new audit, a new deal that closes. So the same story twice gets ignored. And that's what keeps it running every day without necessarily bearing you. So that's the loop. You keep the watch list. Every morning it reads the web, checks what it finds against credible sources, writes up what matters, and only pulls you in when something crosses the line. So the whole goal is, right, there's no noise, there's no year-old news. Every alert is really tied to a real source.